I woke up with butterflies in my stomach and joy buzzing through my veins. Today was my bridal shower, the one day I wasn't supposed to worry about seating charts, guest lists, or opinions that weren't mine. Please stay with me as I tell you my story. Please don't forget to like, share with your family and friends, and subscribe to this channel. Now back to my story. Today was about celebration, about being surrounded by the women who loved me and supported the journey I was about to take. And for the most part, it was exactly that. My bridesmaids outdid themselves. The room was filled with soft florals, floating candles, and laughter that melted every worry I had been carrying. My maid of honor gave a beautiful toast, and my family came together to make the afternoon feel like something out of a movie. There were gifts, games, sweet treats, and so much genuine love it almost felt unreal. But then there was her, my future mother-in-law. She arrived with her usual tight smile and lingering silence, accompanied by her friend. I hadn't seen her since our last difficult conversation, one where I had finally spoken up about how her behavior had been hurting me. I was encouraged to be honest, and I was, but what followed was yelling, eye-rolling, blame-shifting, and absolutely no accountability. It ended with me emotionally exhausted, and her emotionally distant. And now here she was again, present, but distant, polite but cold, standing off to the side, like she had wandered into the wrong event. I wanted to believe the day could still be perfect, that we could both rise above, that maybe, just maybe, we could share the space and peace. But that's not what happened, and it all began to unravel with a simple card, one she refused to write on, until she finally did. And what she wrote changed everything about how I saw her. My maid of honor had this sweet idea, one of those thoughtful touches that make showers feel extra personal. She handed each guest a small card that read at the top, "Well wishes and advice for the bride," in delicate gold script. The idea was simple: write something heartfelt, funny, or wise for me to read later. Something I could look back on and smile. I loved it. Everyone was engaged, laughing, scribbling, sharing memories and marriage tips. And then came the moment I saw her, my future mother-in-law, hand the card back. Blank. At first, I thought maybe she hadn't received one. So my maid of honor, gracious as ever, walked over and gently offered her one again. Her response: a dismissive wave of the hand and a flat, "I don't need one of those." Just like that. No smile, no laughter, no effort to soften the words. She stood in the corner, fanning herself with the card like it was a flyer she didn't want to take, but couldn't throw away. The friend she brought, however, filled hers out without hesitation, and passed it back with a warm smile. My MOH collected it, and out of caution, gave it a quick glance, just in case there was anything pointed. There was. One line stood out from the rest: "Never be rude to others." That was it. No congratulations. No warmth, no context, just that sentence. The room hadn't changed, but suddenly something inside me had. Was it directed at me? Was that her way of taking a jab in the middle of a celebration meant for joy? Or worse, was it her way of pretending to contribute, while quietly twisting the knife? I didn't say anything in the moment. I smiled through it, hugged who I needed to hug, opened gifts, posed for photos. But inside something tightened, something stung. Because in that one gesture, in that one sentence, she reminded me that even on a day that wasn't about her, she still wanted me to feel small. The pile of gifts was beautiful, a mix of shiny wrapping paper, ribbons, and handwritten cards. Everyone had gone above and beyond. Little luxuries, kitchen gadgets, heartfelt messages about love. And starting a new chapter, I felt so seen, so celebrated. And then I opened hers. It was a modest gift card, tucked inside a plain envelope. No glitter, no handwriting on the outside. Inside was a voucher for a manicure and pedicure at a local spa, thoughtful on the surface, but cold in delivery. The card read, "Enjoy a mani-pedi on me." That was it. No congratulations. No "so happy for you and my son." No wishing you both a lifetime of love. Nothing. It wasn't what she gave, it was what she didn't say. The silence in her words was louder than anything anyone had spoken that day. I sat there, gift in hand, surrounded by laughter and warmth from others, and I couldn't help but feel a familiar pit open up in my stomach. Not because I expected anything grand or poetic from her, but because I had hoped that maybe, just maybe, she'd take the opportunity to extend a small olive branch, to acknowledge that we're about to be family, to put aside her pride for one day and offer something sincere. But her message wasn't a bridge, it was a shrug. And the saddest part, I wasn't even surprised. It wasn't about the gift, it was about the distance, the deliberate choice not to celebrate me, not even as a courtesy. And in a room full of light, her absence of care was the only shadow that stayed with me. For the camera, I laughed at the games. I thanked each guest with genuine gratitude. But inside, I was unraveling. It wasn't a meltdown, it wasn't a scene. It was that quiet kind of hurt, the kind you swallow with every polite thank you, every hug, every forced breath. Because what do you say? Hey, can we pause this joyful celebration so I can talk about the cold shoulder I'm getting from someone who should be welcoming me into her family? You can't. You're the bride, the center, the happy one you're supposed to shine. So I did. But beneath the surface, I kept replaying every moment. Her refusal to fill the advice card, the blank note tucked inside her gift, that passive little sentence from her friend, never be rude to others. And then I replayed the last real conversation we had. The one where she invited me to speak my truth, and then punished me for it. I opened my heart that day. I spoke softly, carefully, vulnerably, and she rolled her eyes, raised her voice, and made it about her. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a warning. You don't get to be hurt around me. That's what made today so painful. It wasn't just her silence. It was the history behind it. The fact that I've tried, I've shown up, I've given grace, and every time, I'm met with resistance or worse, nothing at all. And yet I can't say any of this out loud, not without looking dramatic or ungrateful. So I smiled harder and tucked the ache somewhere quiet. Because brides aren't supposed to bleed. Never be rude to others. 6 little words. One polite-sounding sentence. But the weight it carried was heavier than any gift. It sat in the back of my mind, long after the shower ended, echoing louder than the laughter. The music, the kind words from people who genuinely love me. It was like a whisper dipped in poison, sweet on the surface, but laced with something intentional. I kept asking myself, was it really about me? Was it just a random thought someone jotted down? Or was it carefully chosen, a subtle dig, a passive-aggressive reminder that I'm the one seen as the problem? I couldn't shake it. Because when you've been told you're too sensitive, too emotional, too difficult for expressing how someone else's actions make you feel, you start questioning your own instincts. You start doubting your right to hurt. That one line, never be rude to others, wasn't advice. It was a performance. A public side-eye wrapped in cursive font. She didn't say it to my face. She didn't have to. It was her way of reminding me that she would rather shame me quietly than meet me halfway. And what's worse, it worked. I felt small again, defensive, alone in a room full of people. That's the thing about subtle cruelty. It doesn't shout. It whispers just loud enough to sting. And the people around you might never notice, which only makes you feel more isolated in your reaction. But I noticed, and I know the difference between advice and accusation. And I knew this. That one sentence wasn't about helping me. It was about putting me in my place. She stood in the corner almost the entire time, while my friends toasted to love and my future, while my bridesmaids made me laugh so hard I nearly cried, while family members handed me gifts with trembling hands and misty eyes. She stood apart, arms folded, expression unreadable, watching but not part of it. It wasn't just physical distance. It was emotional distance. She didn't mingle, didn't laugh, didn't lean in when others took group photos. And when people tried to engage her, she gave short, clipped answers or nodded politely and turned away. I noticed. So did others. My aunt leaned over to me at one point and whispered, "Is she okay?" And I wanted to scream no, but this isn't the place to fix her. Instead, I smiled and said, "She's just quiet." Quiet. Such a simple word. But in her case, it wasn't about being shy or reserved. It was about being present without being involved. Like showing up was enough to check a box, even if she brought no warmth, no joy, no presence. She held that card blank for nearly half the event, fanning herself slowly as if everything around her was a nuisance. The flowers, the people, me. And that hurt. Because I didn't need her to be the life of the party. I didn't need her to give a speech or help organize the food. I just needed her to show up in spirit, to see me, to acknowledge this moment in my life as something special and sacred. But she didn't. She stayed in the corner. And that, more than anything she said or didn't say, told me exactly where I stood with her. There are words I've stopped hoping to hear from her. I'm sorry. I see how that hurt you. I want to have a better relationship. I'm proud of the woman you are. I'm happy you're marrying my son. Simple things, honest things, words that don't cost much but mean everything. But she's never said them, and deep down, I don't believe she ever will. After that last conversation, where I finally opened up about how hurt and uncomfortable she'd made me feel, I realized that her version of love has conditions. Her kindness has sharp edges. Her acceptance, if it ever existed, was thin and easily withdrawn. And at the bridal shower, in a room where vulnerability and celebration should have met, her silence screamed louder than any speech. She didn't need to say much to say everything. That's what made it so painful. Because I wasn't expecting her to be perfect. I wasn't even expecting her to agree with me. I was just hoping she would try. Try to meet me where I am. Try to celebrate something that matters to her son. Try to be kind, even if she didn't understand me. But instead, she brought walls. Instead, she brought distance and deflection. The older I get, the more I've learned. Some people would rather hold on to being right than reach out in love. Some people would rather pretend there's nothing wrong than face what is. And some people simply won't give you what you deserve, no matter how gently you ask. For every ounce of coldness she brought, there were 10 women who brought warmth. My maid of honor, who thought of every detail, the flowers, the playlist, the handwritten cards, who made me feel celebrated, seen, and safe. My bridesmaids, who held my hand when I needed grounding and hyped me up when I needed to feel light. My cousins, aunts, friends, all dressed in soft pastels, smiling wide, hugging tight, laughing loud. They showed up, not just in body but in heart. They wrote me advice like, always laugh together, choose love every day, even when it's hard, build a life that feels like home, not just a house. No hidden meanings, no jabs, just love. One friend wrote, remember this joy on the hard days, it's yours to return to. And I did. I clung to that line like a lifeline. Because in the middle of navigating one person's coldness, I couldn't afford to miss the warmth around me. It would have been easy to let her ruin it. Easy to let her take up all the space in my heart that day. But the truth is, she didn't. Yes, she hurt me. Yes, she left a bruise I'll remember for a long time. But she wasn't the whole story. The real story was written in the laughter around the cake table. In the way Janelle dabbed away my happy tears with a monogrammed napkin. In the way my sister-in-law grabbed my hand during a game and whispered, you've got us, you've always got us. That's what I want to remember. Because in the middle of my pain, I was deeply, beautifully loved. I kept thinking about that sentence. Never be rude to others. At first, it felt like a knife in disguise. A passive-aggressive jab hidden behind politeness. But the more I sat with it, the more I dissected its weight and timing, I realized something that shook me. It wasn't just a sentence. It was a performance. It was written to be seen. By my maid of honor. By me. By anyone who might read it and wonder. Who that's for. It wasn't advice. It was a carefully veiled accusation. Because when someone can't take responsibility for how they hurt you, they'll often flip the script. Instead of saying, I'm sorry, they'll say, you're too sensitive. Instead of asking, how can we move forward, they'll say, you need to be more respectful. They shift the blame. Reframe the narrative. Rewrite the hurt as your fault. That's what that card really said. It said, I'm still holding a grudge. It said, I refuse to own what I've done. It said, let me remind you, in front of everyone, that I still think you're the problem. And maybe no one else would have noticed. Maybe to others, it looked like a generic throwaway line. But I knew her, and I knew the history. That card didn't hurt because of what it said. It hurt because of what it refused to say. It could have said, wishing you love and peace. It could have said, hope today is special. It could have said anything remotely kind. But instead, it said everything I needed to know about where she stood and how little she wanted to step toward me. She didn't ruin my bridal shower. She tried. With her silence, with her coldness, with her refusal to celebrate a moment that meant so much to me. But she didn't ruin it. Because here's what she didn't count on. That joy, when it's real, doesn't need permission. That love, when it's rooted in truth and community, outshines even the most deliberate shade. I carried that day with mixed feelings, grief, disappointment, anger, but I also carried laughter, warmth, and gratitude. The way my friends circled me with energy. The way my MOH caught my eye when I was spiraling and grounded me with a nod. The way the room felt when I stood up to thank everyone. My voice shaking, but my heart steady. Yes, there was one person who made a point not to celebrate me, but there were dozens who showed up with nothing but love. And I refused to give more power to the one who didn't than to the many who did. There are things she may never say. Apologies I may never hear. Moments I will have to grieve privately for the sake of peace. But that doesn't mean I have to carry her weight into my future. I walked into that shower as a bride. I walked out as a woman who finally understood. Not everyone will meet your joy with open arms. But the ones who do, hold them close, thank them twice, and let their love be louder than anything left unsaid. So when I walk down that aisle, I'll carry the memory of that day, not for the one who stood in the corner, but for every woman who stood beside me. I still choose joy. And I always will. Please like, share with your family and friends, and subscribe to our channel for more stories.